Nostalgia, coming from the Greek words for longing and shitty licensed games from your childhood. Already used centuries ago for soldiers longing to return to their homes, it now describes chaps in their 20s living in their mum's basement, longing for better times, back when they lived on the first floor. I am not one of those losers. I still live on the first floor. It has become somewhat of a vague catch-all for any positive emotion related to an earlier time of one's life. Though those positive emotions can also make you feel bad, because the positivity is all but gone from your life. You think back to simpler times and compare them to today, where you have to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, barely any vacation days, wear a well-fitting suit, groom your face, get on the unable to slip yourself, take the voices in your head, don't listen to the voices. Companies have certainly taken note of the consumer's nostalgic tendencies, weaponizing them for easy money, pumping out shitty games and putting on the proper label. It doesn't really matter what exactly they do. Re-releases, remasters, reboots, they all print money like crazy. Though the prefix re seems to help, but I mean, why wouldn't it work? After all, nostalgia is everywhere. We feel it for games, for TV shows, films, for stupid toys, and children are pretty stupid. They can find enjoyment in just about anything, even if it's the worst game yet created. So when we're older, we very well may face the situation that we think back to the Family Guy PS2 game and say, man, what a classic. When in fact it was no classic at all. It was a terrible steaming pile of shit and a cash grab developed in 6 days. Even apart from the re-releases, there's long been a retro gaming boom. There's nostalgic video game mixes with millions of views, crossovers and cinematic universes to fuel your nostalgia-caused spending. It's everywhere, and it's not going anywhere. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with indulging in a bit of a nostalgic tendency or two every now and then. After all, it's fun. I do it too. The problem lies not in people getting enjoyment from something they have fond memories of. Well, I have my problems with that too, after all I much despise happy people, but there are far more sinister forces at work here. While the word nostalgia is often used in a positive manner, albeit with a melancholic twinge to it, nostalgia can be painful. For many of us, childhood meant stability, yet there existed an adventurous spirit. When you live a shitty life with dopamine receptors that won't work, a soul-draining, tedious job, no social life to speak of, and no dreams, no hopes, no excitement, it is not unnatural to look back at these happier times, desperately wanting them back. And that, or similar circumstances, can lead to obsessive behaviors trying to regain something that is long gone. And by overly indulging those longings, you may end up making your situation even worse, which can lead to a vicious cycle that ends in downward spiral. As unbelievable as it may seem, Shrek Super Slam probably won't cure your clinical depression. It's most likely a slightly better vice than hard drugs, but that doesn't make it good for you. It's understandable that you don't want to go into a nihilistic existential meltdown and try to combat it with all you can, but Shrek Super Slam isn't the way to go. If you choose Shrek and Shrek chooses you, you will stagnate, freeze in time, and you can no longer advance. Your fire will slowly fade, leaving but embers, and you will live in the shadow of your former self. It can be difficult to resist your temptations, but sometimes you have to move forward and embrace something new, like heroin. Some people go a step further than just feeling nostalgic for the glory days. Instead, they feel nostalgic for times before they were born. Whether that is because of the music, the culture, or the fact that they didn't exist altogether. There's a multitude of reasons. A famous example are the people going into the YouTube comments talking about how they were born in the wrong generation. Looking to time periods from before our birth gives us the ability to project our desires onto a time we do not know. If only I'd been born earlier, then life would make sense. Maybe, or maybe not. It's harsh to say, but this is an attitude of cowardice. You say you were born too late to explore the world and too soon to explore the universe. But let's be real, would you do either of those things? If you were born sooner, you would probably have died of diphtheria. And if you were born later, you would work in one of the Elon Musk approved space emerald mines. Maybe exploring memes is for the best after all. And the amount of technology we have is quite handy. But in this nostalgia-riddled era of ours, some have come to renounce this level of technology altogether. Never has it been easier to be connected to one's past, a moment in time 10 years ago, just a click away. But you cannot return, you're stuck here, for better or for worse. Similarly, being connected to other people from all over the globe is easier than ever. But while you may know more people than a person from the 70s would have, do you really know them? With online friends and to go even further, parasocial relationships, there's many ways to get lost in shallow and unfulfilling forms of relationships. Not that these types of relationships are all bad or that you can't have good friends online. But I'd rather have no friends than being friends with a Redditor. And I think it's quite apparent that spending every waking hour watching your digital waifu can at least be somewhat related to deeper issues. The same goes for the non-digital waifus, of course. We might even want to go just a tad bit further back, beyond medieval and ancient civilizations, even beyond the advent of humanity. Maybe it's all a longing for the past, all the way back to the fateful incident where some dumbass lizard left the water, leaving us all to suffer and bicker. Maybe it was all a mistake after all. I ponder sitting here next to my paused game of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, listening to a nostalgic DS music mix, sipping on my Capri-Sun. A colorful and fascinating mistake though if it was. And the sense of nostalgia, longing to return to something, but muddled and unclear, leaving only the need to return, just unknown to what or where. Maybe it is slowly ruining us, eating us up, rotting our minds, stuck in a past, potentially one that never existed to begin with, a shared, collective imaginary world loosely based on something real. Maybe that's bad, maybe it's alright, maybe it's the worst thing that could ever happen to humanity. Anyway, catch me next time when I'll review Jedi Academy, a classic game from my childhood.